This past week, the DC City Council voted unanimously to raise the city's minimum wage to $11.50 over the next 3 years, and then floating it with inflation thereafter. It's passed unanimously, so in all likelihood, the mayor will sign it because it's a veto-proof piece of legislation. Now, this measure in the District of Columbia, um, well, in some way, it's a powerful thing, and we've talked about the minimum wage on this show before, right? And there's a lot of folks out there who don't believe we need to raise the minimum wage, but let me make it very clear, right? The minimum wage currently, right, is $8.25 in the District of Columbia. I want to say it's $7.25 nationwide, if I'm not mistaken. And there's been this urgency by those who are part of the middle and working class to raise the minimum wage. And yet still, it's $7.25 nationwide, and per hour. And yet still, we have not gotten consensus to raise the minimum wage. The minimum wage has not been raised since 2009. 2009, haven't raised the minimum wage. And people are like, oh, well, the minimum wage is for high school students. Minimum wage for high school students. You hear that all the time. That's just not true anymore. In the current economy, the minimum wage are for working families, people who have to take care of 1 kid, 2 kids, 3 kids, or even if people have to take care of themselves. Can you imagine taking care of yourself on $17,000 a year? That's below the poverty level, America. We need something to be done about this. And what you end up having, folks, is a race to the bottom when it comes to wages. And what we need to fight for in this country is actually having a race to the top. That is how you truly create competition and you spur innovation. Find individuals that are saying, listen, we're going to have a race to the top. The states that can pay the highest wage and attract the best workers. Right? Instead of having what we have in this country is where there is a race to the bottom, where every state is trying to make sure that minimum wages so they can quote unquote attract businesses. But you don't attract high skilled workers by having a low minimum wage. You have to create a floor. And the better the floor, the more workers you have. It's just that simple. It is really just that simple. DC is not the first place to do this, right? DC joins the wave of other places. In New Jersey, they approved a minimum wage hike this past November. In SeaTac, Washington, in Prince George's County here in the district area, in Montgomery County, they all understand the importance of raising the minimum wage in America. And I'm telling you, folks, it's one of those things where this shouldn't even be a discussion. This shouldn't even be a discussion. Should not be a discussion here in the richest country in the world about raising the minimum wage. This should be an easy thing to do. An easy thing. Nothing complicated, hard about raising the minimum wage. Every day, millions of Americans go to work at full-time jobs, but still struggle to support their families. Earning the minimum wage for these workers allow them to buy the basic needs and basic necessities, food, housing, clothing, or can stop them from relying on public assistance to make ends meet. Now, let me be very clear. So there's all those folks out there who all the same, and this is not the hypocrisy in the minimum wage argument, right? Because all the folks out there who are anti-minimum wage are also anti-public assistance. They want to cut WIC. They want to cut public housing. They want to cut the SNAP program. They'll do everything in their power to make sure that poor people stay poor. But they don't want to allow them to work. Because you see, if you allow them to work for a living wage, then they wouldn't have to depend upon the public assistance. And I'm not making this stuff up. Because every Walmart draws down over $1 million in public assistance for their employees. The annual income of a full-time employee making a minimum wage at $77.25 an hour is $15,000. Living below the poverty line. That is not enough to afford rent for a 2-bedroom apartment in any of the 50 states in the United States of America. Jobs should help lift people out of poverty, not trap them in perpetual poverty. And that is what these systems and the why we need to raise the minimum wage, right? And many of these work, and that's the thing. And you know, like I said at the beginning, we talk about this whole these are teenagers. I used to make a minimum wage, and I worked my first job at McDonald's. That was the economy of the past, because we have not focused on rebuilding America and bringing manufacturing jobs right back here to America. What has happened is the minimum wage workers are breadwinners in their families, and 55% work full time. The median age of a low-wage worker is 34 years old. So let's be very clear, the median. That means, from all those folks who remember simple, basic mathematics, the median is the middle number. So you take all the workers, make a minimum wage, and you put them on a line. And the middle of that line, 34 years old. 34. That means 50% of those people are under 34. So they're between 16 and 34. But the other 50% of them are 34 and over. Those are grown adults. Grown adults. And you could also make the inference based on that from 21 to 34, it's about 30 or 40% of the 30% of the population, if not more, of the minimum wage workers. So we're talking about some real problems here. And the president has been very clear on this one. We need to raise the minimum wage. He's done everything in his power to do it. He said we need to raise it to $10.10. He said in the State of the Union address, right? He's pushed for Congress to do it. Hopefully we'll see a bill from coming out of the United States Senate in the next year. We hope this bill goes somewhere, at least gets a damn hearing in the House. But this is real problem. This is a real issue. Real issue. It's real. This is not bull. This is real. Real issues. We're talking about real people. Real people. More than 4 out of every 5 economists tell us the benefits in increasing the minimum wage would outweigh the cost. Further studies from the Center for Economic and Policy Research found that raising the minimum wage to $10.10 would create jobs while causing no reduction in the ability of minimum wage work. Now, here is why this is true. People out there don't understand. Don't let these people snooker you into believing that the minimum wage will take away from jobs. That's not true. Because those individuals, right, some of the poorest of Americans, when they bring income in, right? So let's use this. Let's use this for those of you out there who are watching, listening to the show, you won't be able to see the demonstration, but it's pretty clear, right? If this is all that you make, it's all that you make. You got to pay for rent, you got to pay for housing, you got to pay for food, uniform for your kids, all that. And it's all you got. You're going to spend all of it paying for all those things. You have less to spend. But now if I'm an individual that has, this is what I have, and remember, it only costs this to take this one. So we're demonstrating with napkins here. So I had one napkin in my hand the first time, which is all the one person had who made the minimum wage. And now I'm a rich person, so I have 3 napkins in my hand, but it only costs me 1 napkin to live. The other 2 napkins are going to go into savings, or I'm not going to use them. I'm going to save them for a rainy day, or I'm going to save them again when I'm having a hot dog, or whatever the situation might be. Truth of the matter is, but because I'm spending all of my income and all of that money is going directly back into the economy, I now have the ability to create jobs because I'm renting a property, meaning my landlord is getting money. He could use the money to hire a super for my building. I'm using the money at the grocery store at the Giant, and that money goes to hiring a sales clerk. I'm using that money for school uniforms. It goes to hire a seamstress, and on and on and on. Raise the minimum wage, America. Let's do it in 2014. We'll be right back on the Fowler Show after this break.